We often hear from Christians that the Quran said that Jesus was not crucified, that somebody else was crucified in his place, but that's a historic fact that he was crucified. But is that a historic fact?
Oh Lord, when will this end?
Are there any non-religious secular historian that have eyewitness accounts to the crucifixion of Jesus?
Okay, this is where the first issue arises. We're demanding non Christian eyewitness testimony for an event. This demand completely misunderstands how historiography is done. In ancient history, direct eyewitness testimony for anything is extremely rare. It's a good thing, though, that historians don't rely on eyewitness testimony to reconstruct the events of history. If that was the case, we wouldn't know anything.
No, there are no known non-religious secular historians with eyewitness accounts of the crucifixion of Jesus.
But here are two important things. We do have non-Christian sources that attest to the crucifixion of Jesus. Both Tacitus and Josephus mention Jesus' execution under Pilate. They're not eyewitnesses, but these sources show that the crucifixion of Jesus was something recognized as a historical fact in the ancient world. And number two, as I've argued in many other places, we have historically reliable eyewitness testimony of the life of Jesus, namely in the Gospels and Acts. So why not go to the historically reliable documents that we have in the first place, that are eyewitness testimony?
Now, were there any early Christians that did not believe Jesus was crucified on the cross, but somebody else was crucified in his place?
This is where things get tricky, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. He makes a really significant evidential shift. After asking for non-Christian eyewitness accounts of the crucifixion of Jesus to support the fact that Jesus was crucified, he now shifts the necessary criteria to something very weak in order to support his claim. He doesn't care if you're an eyewitness, and he doesn't care if you're not a Christian. All he really cares about is whether or not some people believed that Jesus was not crucified. If you don't see the problem, it's that the Creator is implying that you need the stringent criteria to affirm the crucifixion. But when it comes to denying the crucifixion and affirming what the Quran says, all you need is that some people believed it. No context as to why they believed it, just so long as they believed it. This is inconsistent methodology. If you're going to make demands of one side, you better fulfill the demands on the other side. Where are the eyewitnesses claiming that it was Simon of Cyrene on the cross and not Jesus? The Creator conveniently leaves that out.
Yes, some early Christian groups, like the Basilidians, believed that someone else was crucified in Jesus' place.
So let's talk about the Basilidians. These were followers of Basilides, a 2nd century Gnostic teacher, and they, like other Gnostic groups, held a view called Docetism, which taught that Jesus wasn't a physical being, and therefore could not have been crucified. Instead, they typically believed that somebody else, like Simon of Cyrene, was crucified on the cross in Jesus' place, while Jesus was taken up into heaven. Now, here's the problem. This Creator doesn't tell you why they believed this. It'd be one thing if we had the writings of the Basilidians, which we don't, and it'd also be helpful for him if the Basilidians wrote that they had historical contentions with the crucifixion, not theological or metaphysical contentions with the crucifixion of Jesus. In other words, he's appealing to the Basilidians as a historical reason to doubt the crucifixion, but the Basilidians never doubted the crucifixion on historical grounds. It was always theologically and metaphysically related. Their belief was not grounded in eyewitness testimony. The early church recognized this belief, and that's where we get writings from Irenaeus and Tertullian writing against these people. The early church argued that this was a distortion of the apostolic eyewitness tradition. Mainstream Christians from the beginning affirmed the physical crucifixion of Jesus. And the Gnostic views were a minority position always rooted in contentions in theological and metaphysical nature, not historical. So pointing to them in support of the Quran is not a strong move.
So there's no historic fact here. In fact, early Christians even believed that somebody else was crucified in place of Jesus, as the Quran says.
When you have to create an inconsistent, contrived methodology to back up your claim that comes 600 years after the fact, and when you have to rely on AI to make your arguments for you, I think those are really good markers that your position is false. Let's just end this with this. Is the crucifixion of Jesus a historical fact?
Yes, crucifixion of Jesus is considered a historical fact by the vast majority of scholars, both Christian and non-Christian. It's by multiple sources, including early Christian texts, Gospels, and non-Christian sources, such as the Roman historian Tacitus and the Jewish historian Josephus. Historians across the board affirm that Jesus' crucifixion under Pontius Pilate is one of the most well-attested events from the ancient world. So while anyone can use AI to try and skew narratives, the historical evidence for the crucifixion remains strong.
There you have it, folks. AI disproved his use of AI. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.